Donald Trump is about to accuse the BBC of spying and espionage as part of an attempt to interfere in the US presidential election. This started as a row about editing. Then it became a row about compensation for defamation. It is now becoming a debate about the national security of the United States of America and a left-wing elite in Britain hell-bent on destroying the American electoral system. This video is going to run you through the allegation that is being made and why it is so serious. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, please do donate to the Patriot Fund. The link is below. We are fighting for patriotic causes all of the time. Okay. Well, as I said, I've got a number of friends actually, who are involved in the Trump team, who work at various levels within the Trump organisation and indeed the Trump administration. And what they're saying now is this: there are increasing concerns in the United States of America about espionage. Now, we've all heard about the ludicrous Hillary Clinton allegations of spying by Russia on her. Now, whatever was leaked, however it was leaked, and however it got out into public domain, let's remember a couple of things about Hillary Clinton. Number one, nobody lied about her. These were literally emails that she sent. So damaging was what she was saying behind the scenes that she didn't want it to ever come out. You know, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. Remember Hunter Biden and his laptop, where there was a deliberate conspiracy to pretend that Hunter Biden's laptop wasn't really his, didn't have photos of, how should we say this, young people on it, and was in no way, or ought to be in no way, damaging whatsoever. That was a lie. The laptop was Hunter Biden's and it did have some extremely concerning information on it. Let's leave it at that. You all know what I'm saying, but I've not seen the material, nor do I have any intention of attempting to download it, believe me. But now, what are we saying about the situation with the more recent presidential elections? Well, there's been concerns in this country, hasn't there, about spying and espionage. The issue of the two Chris's, Chris Berry and Chris Catch is his name, the two people who were accused of spying for China. Just to run through that case very, very simply, one of them is an academic who starts writing papers for a Chinese businessman who's also a senior Chinese spy. The other one works in Tom Tugendhat's office. There is a debate about what constitutes spying, but that doesn't last very long. The reason why the case didn't proceed is because, once again, our good friends Jonathan Powell and Richard Hermer decided that they didn't want to upset China. As I always say in these videos, when it comes to unusual behaviour by the British government towards China, the names Powell and Hermer will always come up. And as you know, I contend that there is at least one high-level spy in the British government working for China. Okay, so we now know that there's a Chinese spy problem. But what about the American spy problem? Well, that is different in nature. Let me now explain to you a little bit about intelligence, of which I haven't got very much. Okay, so I've got a very good friend of mine who was an ambassador for a former Soviet country. Now, this country is small, you know, not particularly significant. And I asked him about what intelligence he sends back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And he said, every week I write an email, and it's just an email about what's going on in Britain that would be relevant to our country. Now, I said, well, what's the difference between spying and information gathering? He said, well, there is no difference. He said, every embassy obviously engages in monitoring other countries. Now, that may well be things like the French presidential election is going on at the moment, and one of the candidates wants to shut the Channel Tunnel. Obviously would be something that the British Embassy would send back to London. That makes sense. And then obviously, if you look at other countries that we compete with militarily, say like Russia would take an interest in our nuclear submarines. The country where my mate was the ambassador doesn't take a great interest in British nuclear submarines because the country is basically landlocked anyway, and there'd be no particular interest in that. So there's always a process of intelligence gathering. And the reason I make that point is because we gather intelligence information in America, the British Embassy does, and the American Embassy gathers intelligence in Britain. They're not... Are they spying, or is it just gathering of information? Either way, it's the same thing. So that process will always be ongoing and is important that it goes on, because it's important that somebody in London is able to phone up the British Embassy in Washington and say, what is going on in America over steel tariffs? What is going on in America over the idea of selling nuclear submarines to Australia? How is it played in the American media that Peter Mandelson was sacked for the Epstein thing, and what's going on with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor? Great. All that stuff's done. So don't be naive. We all spy on each other. Everyone spies on everyone, and it's a legitimate thing to happen. So what about the BBC? Well, on the issue of the BBC, let's take a step back. There's always been, amongst the Anglosphere, people going and working in each other's countries in politics. So the House of Commons is full of American interns and indeed Australian, New Zealanders and Canadians. But there's a large number of Americans and vice versa. In America, there are a large number of Brits doing internships. Similarly, on election campaigns, there are always British people going campaigning. But in the last US presidential election, 100 senior Labour operatives were sent over by the Labour Party. Now, that is the first time that a political party, indeed a governing political party as it later became, has decided to formally intervene in the US election. So there is a fine line here, but there's a difference between being an intern on a campaign and sending 100 operatives. So Donald Trump is concerned now about the fact that the Labour Party in the UK has attempted to interfere in the US presidential election on behalf of Joe Biden. That then becomes espionage. Then add to it the fact that the BBC, funded by the British taxpayer, which has divisions funded by the Foreign Office and one division funded by MI6, they are now deliberately spreading false information, fake news about about Donald Trump ahead of that presidential election. So, making a mistake, fine. Sending people going and helping with an election, fine. Deliberately falsifying news in order to disrupt a US presidential election, very much not fine, very much illegal. Deliberately defaming a candidate because you want him to lose, very much illegal. Doing it on the British taxpayers' expense, very illegal. Sending 100 operatives in order to discredit Donald Trump rather than just sending interns. And we're starting to look like, and you like this or not, and I appreciate this is a British channel watched by mostly British people, but you like it or not, what I have laid out there is precisely, or almost precisely, what Vladimir Putin was accused of doing in the US presidential election. The fake news, the bot farms, the taking Russian taxpayers' money to meddle in the election, the sending over of undercover operatives. No hacking of the email system, but the hacking of the email system was essentially minor compared to the allegations that were being made. Now, you're going to say to yourself, oh my God, Andre, you're a fool. The United Kingdom is not deliberately trying to undermine the American democratic system. Well, I've got some bad news for you. Because I remember when Viscount Monckton, Lord Monckton, Christopher Monckton, who worked for Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s, he said that the whole trans movement was probably something to do with the Foreign Intelligence Service. And I said, all right, well, that's a bit of a fruity view, Chris. But he said, but every new social movement that comes about where you can't understand where it came from normally comes from an intelligence community, an intelligence group, an intelligence organisation, a foreign actor. He turned out to be completely right. But who was the country funding the trans campaign? The United States of America, through US aid. Elon Musk and Donald Trump discovered that that's what had taken place. And so, actually, unbelievably, the allegation stands that Britain and America, despite being allies in terms of ordinary people, the deep state in the United Kingdom is attempting to destroy the American democracy, and the deep state in America is attempting to destroy British democracy. I think that Donald Trump was wrong in his initial approach to see the BBC purely as a defamation case. It's got to be something about a wider issue of deep state actors within certain countries, for whatever reason, attempting to undermine elections in other countries. Now, I would say to you that I believe the reason is not that the Brits want America to fail, nor vice versa. I believe it's that there is now a cabal of hardline Marxists within the British government, within the security services, within the Foreign Office, and in their equivalents in the United States of America, who are desperate to ensure that America First fails, that Brexit fails, that the West fails, that we aren't able to stand up for ourselves and our democracy. And this is really pretty serious. It means that our government has got so out of control, is so divorced now from genuine democracy, that we've got no idea what's going on. Who knew? Who knew that the people funding the chemical castration of British children was US aid? Who knew that most Stonewall staff were being paid for by an American taxpayer or American taxpayers who are vehemently opposed to what Stonewall is saying? And who knew that now if you pay £174.50 a year to the BBC, and I would recommend you don't, but if you are doing that, then you are about to be accused of funding foreign terrorism. And that, I believe, is not something that you'll get into any trouble for, because I think Donald Trump and the Republicans and America in general has the sense to understand that we're all being duped here. But if now the Labour Party and the BBC are considered to be organs of espionage by the United States of America, what happens if BBC correspondents are told to register as foreign agents like Russia today? What happens if that happens? What happens if the 100 Labour operatives who came over during the US presidential election are banned on the basis that the United States of America believe they're spies? This could be a very, very dangerous piece of territory. And we have to look now very seriously at the BBC. And we have to also look very seriously, more generally, about campaigning in other people's countries. And I'll leave it with this. It's very, very easy for us in Britain to think of the President of the United States of America as the leader of the free world. But what we have to do is divorce the man from the job. And we have to say to America, you have the right to elect whomever you want. We will give our opinions, but we're not going to interfere in that election. We live in a globalised communications world in which something that you publish here in Windsor could just as easily be read in Ohio as it is read in Datchet next door. In that environment, I think we all have a responsibility not to interfere in each other's democracies. And it is a responsibility that the BBC are absolutely, absolutely determined not to make good on. Thanks so much for watching this. By the way, I was sent this by my friends in the United States of America. They are President Donald J. Trump cufflinks. Do you know what I might do? If you donate to the Patriot Fund, I might get another set and give them away to one of our lovely Patriot Club donors. You can donate below. And this, you know what, on the back it says 4547 in reference to which president he was. Thanks so much for watching this video. BBC are a disgrace. Until next time, goodbye.